Good morning and welcome back to Remaining Calm through October. Now, you might be listening to these episodes and it might not be anywhere near October. That's okay, because what I'm sharing are calming tips, 31 of them, that you can use whenever, wherever you need to. My intention with this series is to offer you options, things that you can start to explore that maybe weren't on your radar before, maybe a gentle reminder of something that has been on your radar and has worked for you previously. But that's my intention with doing this, to help support you through what I know might be a difficult month. It might just be a difficult time in your life, right? And things might feel heavy and you might feel like you're spinning a little bit. And I want you to be able to use these tips to be able to ground yourself. And if we haven't yet met, I'm Karen Del Maestro. I am your host for this 31 days of calming tips. And I'm a health and calmness coach. I also happen to be a breast cancer and BRCA2 thriver. And I specialize in helping breast cancer survivors to get their energy back and find a calm and authentic life after treatment is done. So, what are we talking about today? Today, we are talking about mindful eating. You might be saying, well, Karen, isn't eating just eating? And the answer is no. And I think you're going to be surprised as you listen to this episode and learn I'm going to be sharing 5 ways that mindful eating can actually be helpful to you. But mindful eating is a practice that encourages you to be present and engaged with the food and what you're eating. It's about paying close attention to the sensory aspects of your food, of the taste, the texture, the smell, right? As well as the physical sensations of what hunger feels like, and also fullness. And what this practice brings to the forefront is the awareness of our thoughts and emotions, especially related to eating. And I'm going to invite you to do this without judgment, because I think as a nation, and hey, there are times that my husband and I eat our dinner on a tray in front of the TV. I will not lie to you. We do that on a weekly basis, right? But there are also times that we don't do that and we'll sit at the table and actually have conversation. And what I know for myself, what I know to be true for many of my clients and the hundreds of women that I've spoken to over the past 20 years, is that very often food is used as an emotional crutch, right? It's often used to numb ourselves from things that we're actually feeling that perhaps we don't know what to do with. Perhaps we feel like we can't share with a significant other or anybody else because they don't get it. So we end up kind of sucking it up and eating our feelings. I want you to know that if that sounds like you're not alone. Not alone. I think there are so many people that can relate to exactly what you're experiencing. But I also want you to hang out with me for this episode because I think you'll find it quite interesting. And as with everything, right? Sometimes we need to learn to be adaptable, especially when we realize how something might be impacting our health and well-being. So let's take a look at these 5 things that are huge benefits for anybody, but especially if like me, you're a breast cancer survivor. Now, mindful eating encourages us to savor and appreciate each bite. Right? We're not, and what happens when we're in front of the TV, as you know, or if we're grabbing something on the go, we're going through the drive-through, we're stuffing our face with food. We're not thinking about it. It's literally just get it down, just eating mindlessly what's in front of us. But when we start to be more mindful about the look, the taste, the smell, then it can actually help us make healthier food choices because we're kind of hitting the pause button and saying, What is this? Right? So it can help you get a better nutrient intake by incorporating nutrient dense foods, right? Like fruits and vegetables and whole grains and lean proteins to support your overall health and well-being. Now, there's actually one of the things about mindful eating, and by the way, what is mindful eating? It's really just, like I said before, tapping into your senses with eating, tapping into your body. Are you really hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you emotional? Right? We have to look at the emotional triggers. And I have an acronym for that, as you've probably learning. I have a lot of acronyms for a lot of things, but 5 of the most frequent emotional triggers are frustration, fear, loneliness, angry, and boredom. In other words, blab. So frustration, fear, loneliness, angry, boredom. And so those emotions can lead us to just grab food, and it's typically not the best food. So this whole thing about being mindful about having more nutrient dense foods in the home can actually help you. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, it can actually help improve your digestion, right? So mindful eating involves eating slowly and chewing food thoroughly. Now, you may say, well, of course, Karen, I chew my food, but I'm going to invite you, and I've heard different numbers in here. So I'm going to say to you, if you chew each mouthful 30 times, I've actually even heard up to 100 times. But I think start with chewing each mouthful for 30 chews. And again, it's just being mindful about how long it can take, because we can swallow food much bigger than really is best for our digestion. So especially if you have issues with your digestion, with bloating, with gas, with constipation, then this particular tip can help, or has the potential to help, I should say, because it can help in aiding your digestion, reducing discomfort with bloating and gas pains. And especially if you find, like I said, that you struggle with things like IBS or any kind of digestive issues, this is a good thing to try out. This is also not a thing that is just one and done. It's something that you want to start being more mindful of as you go through the day. Even with things like oatmeal, like I start my day with oatmeal, and it's very easy to just like chug it down and get on with your day, right? But I actually sit there and I chew it, even though there's really nothing to chew. It's kind of goopy. But I sit there and I chew it mindfully as I eat my breakfast. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is how mindful eating can help reduce stress levels. Right? So that's what this whole series is about, right? Reducing our stress levels, helping us stay calm. And how does it do that? By promoting relaxation throughout our meals. Again, if we're in this just get it down mode, or watching a TV show, and it's interesting because if you have your dinner on your lap, like I shared, we often do, and we're human too, right? And again, this is not about perfection. This is about being realistic of what works in your life. So if you can have your dinner on your lap and do these things, then that's great. But you'll notice that if you are watching a fast-paced or anxiety-ridden show, so perhaps you're watching a car chase, perhaps you're watching The Real Housewives, and things are getting, heightened and elevated. You notice, be mindful. Are you eating quicker because of what's going on? It's kind of like when we're listening to music in the car, right? And a song might come on and your foot goes on the gas pedal, and before you know it, you're going 10, 15, 20 miles above the speed limit because of the song. So it's the way that other senses can impact what we're doing. So again, it's about just being mindful about that so that you can have the awareness to shift it should you want to, right? And of course, this is so important, this stress factor, because chronic stress, as you probably already know, negatively impacts our immune system, as well as our overall sense of well-being, right? So it's really important. And so if we can alter this by just shifting how we're eating, how cool is that, right? Super duper cool, right? So number 4, being attuned to your actual physical hunger and your fullness cues, right? So that's being mindful about those things can actually help you manage your portion sizes. Now, I know, right, that weight management might be a concern for many of you listening to this, especially if you're on medication and it's weight gain is one of the side effects. Perhaps treatment you've gained weight through because maybe you haven't been able to be as active. Or maybe you're emotionally eating because what you've been going through has been tough and emotional. And again, if that's the case, look at yourself with kindness, right? With those, and speak to yourself the way that you would your best friend, right? But really starting to get in tune with how you are really, really feeling. And if you have this sense of feeling bloated and after you've eaten, chances are that you've eaten too much. I'm not a fan of that feeling personally. I don't like that. I don't feel good with that. I don't feel energized with that. I just don't like how that feels in my body. And so I've learned over the years to stop when I'm full. Letting go of stories from childhood where it's like, come on, you're not a good girl unless you clear your plate, or you can't have dessert unless you clear your plate. So many stories that we've kind of taken on board, so many thoughts that we continue to do, even though we're no longer in that environment. So be aware of that too. And the final thing I want to talk about today with how mindful eating can really help you stay calm is it can help you change your relationship with food and with emotional eating, right? And it's vital as we're going through treatment, and especially after treatment when we're not under the care of our physicians as frequently, to know that we're not done when treatment's done, to know that it's often the time when all of the mental and emotional trauma starts to come out. And so it can be a time where, and people are saying, but you're done, and they don't get it, right? This is why we need to kind of stick together here, because it's so important to get support from people that have been there, that have walked the path, that know what it's about. So whether that's me or somebody else, but getting that support. And I think it's something I think that I see our members in Thrivership School. It's one of the most important things to them, right? Is being in a group of people who get it. And it provides this safe place to even discuss. We talk about food and emotional eating. That will come up often, even as we're discussing other things within our program, right? Because it's part of life. It's part of life. So incorporating mindful eating into your daily life, as you can see, can offer numerous benefits, from getting a better nutritional intake, I should say, improving digestion, reducing stress, helping with better portion control, and then the emotional well-being, right? Improving your relationship with food and reducing emotional eating, right? So it is such a valuable tool to help you make informed, healthful food choices, while also, right, promoting a sense of mindfulness and balance in your eating habits. And so your calming action of the day to day, you can probably guess, right, is to practice mindful eating during your next meal. Savor each bite. Pay attention to how it looks and smells. Chew it 30 times before swallowing. Pay attention to your hunger cues. When are you actually full? And are you really still hungry if you want to keep going and emptying your plate? And looking at that with observation and curiosity versus judgment. And if, of course, you need more support, don't forget that, especially during this month of October, I'm offering 30-minute one-on-one sessions as my gift to you to help support you through this month. And you can find that link wherever you're looking at the show notes for this episode. And get in my calendar, book a session, get some support from somebody that has a proven formula that helps, that knows how to support you and can help guide you. And during that session, we can look at one thing, right? So that we can help give you a little bit of a plan and a roadmap forward. So you've got one thing to look at. But please take advantage of that. It's the first time I've done this. It was something I was just called to do in my heart. It's not something I've done before. And I don't know if I'll do it again. But I was called to do it. And so please take advantage of that. And let's end our session today the way that we've been ending all of our sessions throughout this series. And even if you're like, okay, Karen, I've done it before. What we're doing is we're inviting in this practice where you are starting to communicate with your body, with your inner self, with your inner guide, so that you can more mindfully go through your life, so that you can more mindfully invite in calm every day. Okay. Left hand over your heart, right hand on top. And say out loud or in your head to your 10-year-old self. You can either leave your eyes open or close them. For me, and you'll notice if you're catching this on the video, you'll notice I often close my eyes here. It's because I'm truly looking at that 10-year-old little girl and telling her what she needs to hear and what she's needed to hear for a long, long time. And perhaps your 10-year-old self does too. Repeat after me. You are loved. You're safe. I've got you. I love you. Have a beautifully calm day. And don't forget to practice some mindful eating today and see how it impacts your feeling of calm and your digestion. And see if this is something you want to keep doing for longer and longer. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next episode. I can't wait. Have a great day. Bye for now.